Coffee with Kay, where we're going to make sure the coffee is always served strong, but it's also going to come with a side of truth, and that's truth with a capital T. The truth of God, that is. I'm here to equip and encourage you, Saint. Yep, that's right, you. And if you're not familiar with the sainthood, I want to teach you what it is, and I want to invite you to the family. So, let's get right into it.
Monday, happy days. Tuesday, Wednesday, happy days. Thursday, Friday, happy days. The weekend comes, my cycle hums, ready to race for you. Monday, happy, happy days. Tuesday, happy, happy days. Wednesday, happy, happy days. Thursday, happy, happy days.
Welcome back to Coffee with Kay. I took a little break. I'm kind of sort of back. Not really, because I'm going to take another break because it is almost baby time. I've got 2 more months. I'm so excited. But taking a little holiday break was much needed. And I'll slowly explain why. If you don't already follow me on social media at Mama_K_Price, I shared a little bit there about this pregnancy. This is my 4th pregnancy, and it has been very tumultuous. I also wrote about it a little bit on my blog, just for those who are not like in my inner circle, not family or like immediate friends or church family. Just being really sensitive to this process and having some privacy has been much needed. But I've missed podcasting, and I really, really, really slowly want to get back into it this year, and finish off an ode to my 20s season. And I thought that it would be really appropriate to, since the Sanctity of Life Day is coming up this month, I thought that would be an incredible topic to talk about. An ode to my 20s and walking the talk when it comes to the sanctity of life. And so I'm just going to dive right in. I'm pretty positive on my blog, a little background about just how my mind and my perspective has shifted when it comes to abortion and the abortion mindset over the past decade in my life, from as a teenager to a young adult. And it's only been further confirmed since we've had this experience with our new baby. So I'll start at the beginning. I'll start at 20. If you haven't listened to an Ode to My 20s series yet, definitely jump back to the beginning, because I've been trying to lay like a little foundation with each episode to give a really full picture of my 20s and just the different layers of character growth and life experiences that have come from living life as a kid, as a person. So that will kind of give, I think, more context and more, hopefully, relatability, and also like just providing some sort of trust as the listener, because I'm a stranger on the internet. Oops. I'm a stranger on the internet, and I don't deserve your blind trust. I want to earn your trust, and by sharing my story and being honest, that's how I think I can earn trust, and I think you should earn trust with people. So I'll start with my 20s. When I became a Christian, when I turned 20, just before I turned 20, I had the mindset. I labeled myself as a Democrat. I'm from the East Coast. I grew up on the East Coast. My family have been lifelong Democrats for the most part. I was raised Catholic, but I was not professing Christian. I was not like a devout Catholic by any means, honestly. And I was kind of raised with the mindset that like we never talked about abortion in my family growing up. It wasn't something I learned about until high school. I remember I learned what abortion was. I think I was a freshman in high school, and I moved to a new high school that was in a more urban area than where I was raised. I was raised in a small North Connecticut farm town that was very quaint, very traditional. And then when my parents separated, I moved to this new town in kind of central Connecticut that was a lot more urban, kind of like lower income. And there was this girl, we were doing some project, and we had to choose like a fairly not necessarily controversial topic, but like I remember I did mine on primordial dwarfism. I know. 14-year-old primordial dwarfism. How do you even know what that is? I used to want to be a neonatal intensive care unit nurse growing up. Like, that was my dream. I wanted to be a NICU nurse or work in the nursery with babies. I talked about this in a previous episode. I got a free ride, automatic acceptance into nursing school, and I turned it down the semester before nursing school started because I realized I was not cut out to be a nurse, and I 100% stand by that. In my heart, I wish I could have been a nurse, but I do not do blood, gore, cuts, vomit, puke, blood. No, 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 no. So I actually studied kinesiology in college. Anyway, if you want to hear more about that, that's in a previous episode. So I did my project on primordial dwarfism. We had to write a research paper. Well, one of the girls wrote hers on abortion, and I had never heard of that. I didn't know what that was. And I remember she was a new girl, and she was held back a grade. So she was like 15 going on 16, and she was a little bit mature. She was nice. She was a nice girl, but she was definitely more mature. And so that's kind of when we were first exposed. And I remember we like learned about her topic, and the teacher okayed it. And we like flocked to her computer one day because she's doing this research, and somebody noticed what she was looking at on Google, and we're like, what is this? And so then she was teaching us what abortion is. And I don't remember it being like, yeah, this is what abortion is, and I'm for it. I just remember her learning about abortion, and she was just like, I can't believe this is a thing. And that's all I remember. But it was very traumatizing. I was not ready for that sort of information. And so in my late teenage years, once I went to school, learning about abortion, I was moved to Texas, and in Texas, in public school, you don't have sex education. In public school, you have abstinence class. And so you have health class, but in health, you don't learn about sex ed. But they usually bring in this organization. It's usually a religious-based, sometimes it's a religious-based organization, and they come and teach about abstinence and STIs, and but through the scope of like, you can avoid teen pregnancy through abstinence. You can avoid STIs through abstinence. And that's where I started learning more about it. Like, I'd already had the birds and the bees talk and stuff by then. But in Texas, in my high school, there were a lot of teen moms there. And I had seen one teen mom growing up in that like lower income high school that I went to. And two of my cousins were teen moms, actually. So I'd say three, actually four. There was another girl in that high school who was an immigrant from Mexico, and she was 14 and she was pregnant. So I'll say I had like 5 experiences from 14 to 18 of seeing a teen mom. And so that was like totally new territory for me. And it didn't bother me any. It was just like, I didn't even have a concept for intimacy to be able to even let that be a thought process in my mind. Like, I was just being a kid. I didn't date in high school. I didn't have boyfriend. I had one boyfriend really, and that was after I graduated high school. So I didn't have that context. So anyway, I didn't really have a frame of reference for abortion until I got to college. I didn't have a perspective. I didn't really have a strong viewpoint about it. It was kind of just a little bit that I knew, a little bit about politics that like my political mindset, which was like, okay, well, I'm a Democrat, so Democrats believe this. Democrats believe that a woman has a right to have a choice because it's her body, it's her baby, it's her decision. And so that was pretty much all I knew. And then also, like, if you're not familiar with my story, I was a lesbian. So, sorry, I was a lesbian. I didn't have that preference as a teenager. Again, like I said, it was something kind of inner turmoil. I wasn't acting out on it. I wasn't living out on it. I had conversations about it. I had lesbian friends, and they would always tease me and be like, you're such a lady gay. You just don't know it yet. And then when I came out after I graduated high school, they were like, I knew it. I told you. I knew you were lady gay. And it's like, haha, you're right, you know. And so then as a lesbian, I'm not worried about sex. I'm not worried about abortion. But that definitely came with the community platform and the LGBTQ plus movement. Back then, we stopped at T. LGBT. That's what we had back then. And but that was as a lesbian, as a pro-woman, feminist, Democrat, African American woman, a core belief is believing in abortion and believing it's okay and it's all right and it's justified and it's not hurting anybody. And if you don't want to do it, don't do it. So that was just kind of another layer of that belief that abortion's okay. And I just didn't really have a frame of reference. Again, to my knowledge, I didn't know anybody that had an abortion. I had never, to my from what I knew, I could have been wrong. There could have been people in my life at the time who'd gone through an abortion, and I just didn't know it. And they hadn't said anything, but I wasn't aware of anybody in my life who'd had an abortion that could speak to that experience. And so it was just kind of like hearsay, what I see online, what I talk about in class, what my friends tell me, that I was developing these opinions on. And so when I was 19, I had my first encounter with a guy, like intimate encounter with a guy, and didn't use protection. And I was really worried I was going to get pregnant or that I was pregnant. And so I had this really huge kind of, I guess, conundrum. There's a better word, I cannot think of it, but I had this moment where I'm like, okay, I'm in this position. I'm not on birth control. It was my first experience in that way with a guy. I knew better, but I made that choice to not use protection, and I was late. And I'm 19, and I live on my own. I pay my own bills. I make my own way. I'm putting myself through college. I'm not accountable to anybody, and I'm not dating this guy, and it would probably never work out anyway for us to like raise a kid together because we just did not have a stable relationship or a friendship at that point, barely. And so I considered the Plan B pill, and I remember one day I'm like texting this guy, and I'm standing in front of CVS, and I'm just like, do I do it? And he's like, no, you don't need to do it. We're fine. And I was like, we don't know that. We don't know that. And I don't want to be wrong. But I had this moral compass moment where I was like, okay, this is that moment. This is the moment where do I really believe what I've taught myself, what I've been taught all these years, or do I believe in something different? And I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. And I ended up not being pregnant, but I, I'm very grateful for that, obviously. But I definitely came to terms with, okay, maybe that's okay for other people if that's what they believe, but I don't think that's okay. I couldn't follow through with it. I couldn't do it. And so I didn't do it. And that's when I really started to have just a different perspective. And granted, again, I'm not a Christian yet, but I'd come to terms with that responsibility when it comes to my sexual health. And so later that year, I actually do become a Christian. And so now that's a big topic. That's something that is spoken about a lot in college. So now what do I believe? And I had a couple friends that I had those conversations with where the abortion topic came up and they asked what I believed and I told them and they gave their opinion and told me why I was wrong and I was like, good for you. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not going to do it, but who am I to tell somebody else? Well, all that changed when I had my encounter with the Lord. And I think it's so fascinating, this part of my story, because I talk about abortion, like being pro-life a lot on social media. I'm fairly open about it. I'm not afraid to talk about it. I've been studying the effects, the statistics of abortion for the past 10 years. I serve with teen moms in my community. I minister, my husband and I support organizations that are pro life based. And so we are very, very well educated and affiliated with the pro life movement. So it's like if you want to come at me, I know what I'm talking about. It's not just an opinion, it's facts. And so when I specifically remember starting to dive a little deeper in, like when I first started learning about that, it was actually when I met my now husband. And we were just friends at the time. And I remember one day he came over my house to study. And I had just become a Christian and he didn't even know that I was a new Christian and like had just gotten baptized and stuff. And I was telling him about that and he was somehow we got on the topic of politics. This would have been 2014. So that, yeah, President Obama was still in office. And somehow we got on to politics, and we were talking about like who we voted for, and I said, I voted for Obama. I voted for the his second term was when I could legally vote, and I was really proud to be able to vote for him. And he was like, "What?" Like he was just so offended. He couldn't believe I did that. And um, he was raised in a completely different family than I was, and like my husband is a white American, and his family is from the South. They have very Southern conservative roots. They're like third generation Christians, and so they have very strong beliefs. And he was like, "Well, like, what's your opinion on abortion?" And I said, like, I don't believe it's right. I came to terms with that last year, but I don't believe that I have a say in telling somebody else it's wrong. And he was like, "It's wrong. Like, there's no way around that. Like, there's no way to say, well, it's wrong for me, but it's right for you. It's wrong, and it's wrong, and it's murder, and murder is murder. Like, whether it's a baby, full grown, outside of the womb or halfway grown inside the womb. It's still a baby, it's still a person, and life is still valuable." And so that really, really started getting me thinking. And now I'm also a Christian, and that's a really huge part of Christian life is the belief in the sanctity of life and life's values, and that life is valuable and God cares for his creation. He cares for the people that he has created in his own image. And so that really started. Again, it wasn't something that I was deeply involved in. It was kind of just like, well, okay, I guess, yeah, as a Christian, and even as just personally, that's definitely what I believe in. That I definitely do not believe that abortion is okay. And so, but it didn't impact my life. It didn't impact my day to day. It wasn't something that I felt concerned about, or up in arms about. It just didn't really impact me. Um, so then, I probably was 21, going on 22. I'm married now, newly married, and my husband and I are finishing out college, and we moved to Dallas. And I really wanted to serve, like just volunteering. I've always volunteered in some way, shape, or form, pretty much my entire life. And I wanted to volunteer at a pregnancy resource center. So I went to a pregnancy resource center in Dallas, downtown, through First Baptist Dallas, because that's near where we were living, and I wanted to become a volunteer. And so to become a volunteer, you had to watch a couple documentaries and study because they wanted you to know what you were getting into, what kind of things you were going to be exposed to, why abortion is wrong, what is an abortion, what does it look like, what are the impacts on the baby, what are the impacts on the mom, first trimester, second trimester, third trimester abortions, like what you have to know what you're talking about. And so I get home and I watch these documentaries that they're asking me to watch, and I was just like, it just it just opened up this whole new part of the world that I did not even know existed. I was completely ignorant of it for good reason. I feel like now it's been such a common issue in our culture for the past nearly 40 years. Um, More than 60 million babies have been killed through abortion since Roe v. Wade was passed. That is a lot of people. And one of the documentaries that I watched was about the Black genocide and the eugenics program that Planned Parenthood was based off of by Margaret Sanger to help eliminate the Black population, and how effective it was, and how there's a generation of Black people missing in America that have been killed through abortion, um, that cannot be replaced, that it actually did what it was intended to do by decreasing the Black population and other um, ethnic population groups in our country. And that was so sobering for me as well, because I just couldn't believe that there was so much evil behind such a movement. Like, that was just very hard for me to understand. And then seeing through, like the cartoons, if you have never watched a cartoon, like a dramatized version of an abortion. I highly recommend it. If you're going to have an opinion about this, you need to know what you're talking about, whether it's pro or against, but just how the abortion pill works, the effect it has on the woman, how a second trimester DNC works, dilation and cartilage, the effect on the woman, the effect on the baby, what it looks like after, even up to a third trimester abortion, and what that looks like. And it is horrifying. And it's once you see it, I honestly feel like if it doesn't impact the way you think about abortion, you need to go talk to a therapist because there's nothing normal about abortion. And now, especially as a mom of going on 4, there is not a single scenario that I could imagine killing my child in the womb, whether they're the size of a coffee bean or whether they are the size of a watermelon. There's no scenario that I could ever imagine taking my child's life, ever. I'm going to get into that more, so just hear me out. And I didn't even have kids at this point. I've never been pregnant. I didn't have context for that, but I just knew that it was important and it was something that I really wanted to devote my life to. And so I think I got to maybe volunteer like once at that clinic, and then we moved, and then I got pregnant, and so I didn't have the energy and the time, and I needed to get a job while before my first baby came. So I had my first baby at 22. I turned 23 like 2 weeks later, and especially once you have your first baby, I'm sorry, it's probably like a really harsh sounding thing to say, but if you can birth your baby, look at your baby, nurse your baby, feed your baby, love your baby, but still say that abortion is okay, you need to go to therapy. It's not normal. That is just not, it just is, it's not a healthy mindset, honestly. Even if it's like, well, I wouldn't do it. I love my child, but if you want to do it, go for it. That's literally the equivalent of saying, I would never walk in front of a train that's coming straight down the track for me, full steam ahead, because I know it's going to kill me. But if you want to go step in front of the train, I mean, that's your choice. It's your right. You're welcome to do it. It's going to hurt you. You're going to die. You're going to traumatize people. But, like, if that's what you want to do, if that's what makes you happy, go for it. And if you're the type of person that would ever say that to somebody, you need to go to therapy. That's a horrible thing to say. That's a horrible thing to say that I don't care if you put yourself in harm's way because that's what you want to do. Granted, you can't control people's lives. You can't tell people what to do, right? At the end of the day, people are going to choose, they're going to make their own life choices. And that they have to deal with that. They have to deal with those repercussions and those consequences. And I can't control that. But I'm not going to condone it. I'm not going to encourage it. I'm not going to lie to somebody's face and tell them this isn't going to hurt. I'm not going to lie to them and tell them you're not going to regret this. Or, the baby that you're killing is a person. It's not a clump of cells. It's a person and you're murdering somebody. I'm going to tell you the truth. And if you can't tell somebody the truth or tell the truth to yourself, that is a problem. And it is going to impact you for the rest of your life. It is living in denial, right? Whether or not you believe in Jesus, you are living in denial. And so when I had my son, I really wanted to continue volunteering, especially as a mom. I've always kind of felt like that should not be a reason that I don't volunteer my time to other people who deserve help or deserve my time or want to be ministered to. And so I found out about Young Lives through my church, and our church used to have a day where organizations could come in and they could like have a couple of minutes on stage to talk about their organization, and then there was a booth at the end of that Sunday where you could go around and like learn more or sign up. And so I remember the coordinator of Young Lives in the city I was living in North Dallas, speaking, and I just felt like that's where I needed to be. I had worked with high schoolers and teenagers through our church ministry for about 3 years before that, 2 or 3 years before becoming a parent, and I really enjoyed it. I had always shied away from middle school, high school age because I just thought like I couldn't relate to them and they were just kind of a difficult demographic to get along with. And so I felt really convicted that I wanted the challenge and I wanted to learn how to minister to these kids and like get along with high school age kids. And so I started volunteering with high schoolers and I loved it. I love high school agers, like age kids. I love teenagers. They're just um there's just such a fun age, and in a way I feel like it's like healed my own childhood where I didn't really get to be a kid. Like I said earlier, I had an innocent mindset, but I had a lot of responsibilities at a very young age. I had to grow up really fast, and I like kind of practically raised my little brother, raised myself, and I missed out on a lot of fun as a kid. And so I feel like my 20s were me getting to like learn how to have fun again and like be a kid again. So I love teens. So yeah, I started serving with teen moms when I was 23. Um, and I still serve with Young Lives to this day. I briefly worked with Young Life. So, Young Lives, if you know what Young Life is, it's a ministry for high school students, and they mentor students. I got to work on staff out here as the Young Lives coordinator for about 6 months. I just had my third baby, and I that's when I ended up staying home. I talk about that in another episode too about my career path. But my husband and I mentor teen moms and dads together now, and we also serve on the committee in our region, and we sponsor Young Life. We're devoted to Young Lives and Young Life, and it's been one of the things in my life I cherish the most. And I love it. I feel honored to get to be part of these kids' lives and impact multiple generations at once and stand up for life. And so when I was 23 is when I started serving in Young Lives with teen moms. We take them to summer camp. We have like club nights and we share the gospel with them and we mentor them. We give them dinner and diapers and fundraise for them and hang out with them, babysit their babies, take them to the grocery store, sit down and have girl chats, have real life talks. And it is a real life ministry. I mean, I've seen some things through Young Lives that are just like heartbreaking. We've had some of our kids, they were not kids at the time, they were 18 and not minors anymore, live with us for different reasons and being like, I'm not a foster parent yet. I would love to be a foster parent someday, but like I used to be, like a guardian, a legal guardian with a CPS in our city for one of our Young Lives girls. um, maybe two of our Young Lives girls who had CPS cases because if they spent time with us, with me, and I was approved by CPS, then they could have their baby with them if they were in a situation where they had lost custody of their child, and then that would contribute to their hours in their case to get their babies back. And so it's just been, I mean, if I could go on and on about it, if you ever want to hear more about it, send me an email. I'm happy to dialogue and share about my Young Lives experience and show you how you can get involved in your own local area. Young Lives is across the, it's it's in America and it's in Africa currently. Young Life is a global initiative. I can't even think how many countries they're in right now, but Young Lives is only in the U.S. and in North America and in Africa right now. But I'm sure you could find a region nearby where you live or start one yourself. And I'd be happy, happy, happy to share all about that. Um, so yeah, I still serve in Young Lives today, and that has been one of the biggest ways that I've invested my time in the pro life community and fighting for life. And so the newest way that I've now been a part of the pro life, I think just to conclude my 20s, has been with this baby. And so that's kind of where I got the phrase for this episode of Walking the Talk, because I've had this perspective for a decade and I understand why I believe it. And but with this pregnancy, now I've truly come full circle in walking the talk of why I believe that everybody deserves a chance at life. And if you're not in this situation or you're not able to, then trying to adopt. I guess that's part of my story too. Is we've had a failed adoption, and that was really sad. Like it was really hard. I was 27. One of my best friends, her best friend, was an adoptive mom and a foster mom, and there was two orphans, true orphans, who needed a family, and it got passed through the grapevine. And my friend said, I know that this is something you guys have said you would be interested in, and here's an opportunity. And I told many of my friends, like, if you ever hear an opportunity, definitely ask us, because we will do anything we can to become a home for a parent, or become a home for a baby or a child who needs a home. And so it was a brother and a sister, and they were 5 and 7. Their parents had terminated their rights, and they were living with their great aunt and uncle. The great aunt and uncle were getting elderly and felt like they couldn't properly take care of them anymore, and so had sought adoption for this brother and sister. And they were sent with a family. The family gave them back, and so we pursued with that opportunity. Right before we met the kids, the aunt and uncle decided to keep them and become like and formally adopt them, and that was a blessing, because that's less trauma for these kids. And but it was really hard, because I'd already opened my heart to these kids, and I'd already started thinking about integrating them into our family, and like what it would look like. And some adoption is something I've always felt called to, like even before I was a Christian. That's another episode. I believe I've talked about how I never thought I would get married and have kids, and I thought I would adopt kids and raise them on my own, like Sandra Bullock. And that clearly did not happen. So yeah, that's also another part. We've always wanted to adopt. We've always wanted to foster, and that just is not something that the Lord has had for us yet. Even up to the end year of my 20s, being 29, we actually were going to we started our paperwork to work with an adoption agency in our city, and we were about to attend the orientation and potentially meet some parents in our city who were looking for adoptive families. And that the week before that orientation, we found out that this baby that I am pregnant with had a severe medical issue. And so we decided to pause on the adoption stuff, which was hard, but needed and necessary. And the further we've gotten through the prognosis for this baby, the more grateful I am that like it wasn't the time to adopt still, because I cannot imagine what our family is going through and then bringing a child into that, like this difficulty right now. And so our baby was diagnosed with hydrops fetalis, and most people don't know what hydrops is, but essentially for whatever reason, the baby will collect fluid inside of its body. And so our baby had pleural effusion and ascites, so the fluid was building up in the lung cavity and the abdominal cavity, which was compressing the organs, compressing the lungs and the heart, so their organs were not developing properly. And then they had severe edema, so their skin was starting to swell, completely swollen. And we almost lost our baby at about 21 weeks. And so I'm going to share more about that eventually. I'm still not really ready to be a high drops spokesperson. It's still too much right now. But we ended up having emergency surgery, perinatal surgery, to put a shunt in our baby's chest to drain the fluid and save their life. And as I started learning about this diagnosis, I found a study that was done in Arizona in 2017 about abortion, medical abortions, and high drops was the number one diagnosis that parents sought life-ending care, terminating their pregnancy for, over Down syndrome, over like Turner syndrome, over all these other medical abnormalities or defects, or cleft lips or whatever. It was high drops babies that were terminated, and that rocked my world, because it just made everything that I've been fighting for and promoting the past 10 years even more real. Where I've always known, even in a medical situation, I don't believe abortion is right. And since Roe v. Wade was overturned and the choice given to the states, whether or not that was going to be allowed in their states. Texas is a pro-life state. You cannot get an abortion in Texas. You have to go elsewhere. However, you can still get the abortion pill from other places to Texas, which is still causing a lot of abortions. So it's still happening in our state. But also, I was 20 plus weeks along. So it's definitely not an option. But it is still an option to just not get treatment and not get care. And that was something I also learned about with high drops studies, is that like 50% of couples choose not to get treatment and choose not to get care, which will usually end the life of the baby. And there's different reasons for that, and some can be financial, but um, some people just, I would understand why they would choose to not get care. I wouldn't do it. My husband and I decided to fight for our baby and to do whatever we could to save our baby and give our baby the chance at life. And we love our baby. And I could not imagine anything worse than losing our baby. Even if it killed me, I just couldn't do it. And so we're so grateful that we have had the opportunity to get medical care, and that like the shunt surgery worked, and that we're still pregnant and like we're close to term and we're close to delivery. And it's been incredibly hard. Again, I will share more in the future. I'm just definitely not there yet. But that's how I ended my 20s. I ended my 20s with 3 kids, um, 7 and under, pregnant with my fourth, ringing in year 30 with a medically fragile baby, in a high risk pregnancy, where I went viral on Threads sharing a little bit about this experience and had people tell me that I should kill my baby, or, that's good for you, but like you said, it's a choice. And the thread is still up there, so if you don't follow me on Threads, I haven't been on there for a while. I like Threads. I need a social media break. But you can see for yourself the stuff people reply, and it's not all bots, it's not all fake replies. It's some people who genuinely believe these things. And some people wrote some incredibly disturbing, horrifying remarks on that thread. And I was grateful for people who stood up for me and were like, that's evil. Like, why would you ever say that to somebody? And I was thankful for the opportunity to get to educate people. But just seeing where this country has gone to since abortion became a right, and where it's still going, and that it hasn't stopped, and having now touched every caveat of the pro-life movement, from medically terminally ill babies, carrying my own terminally ill baby. Praise the Lord, like doctors really believe that our baby will survive this diagnosis, and we don't know what survivability is going to look like once the baby comes out of the womb. But my husband and I were on an anniversary trip right now, which is why I'm not in my usual podcast location. It's currently having inclement weather in Texas. We might get a snowstorm, which happens like once a year, and so everything shut down, and we had to move up our appointments in the city, our specialist appointments out in the city. And so we just, in our anniversaries this weekend, so we just kind of tried to make the most of having to be out of town, and having our ninth anniversary, and just really trying to find pockets of joy in this season, and celebrating life and celebrating our relationship and our marriage and our baby. Where was I going with that? I don't remember where I was going with that. Anyway, I do remember saying, oh, survivability. We were talking last night at dinner that even if our baby is born with brain damage, which could happen, we just don't know. We just don't know what life after time in utero is going to look like for our baby. We know that like God will be with us, and that this baby is still valuable and important and loved and cherished by us and by God, and deserves life, and will do whatever it takes to give them the life that they deserve, that every person deserves, every baby deserves. And so even just now, that being on the table of like the potential of having a medically fragile child, potential of having a child born with mental retardation, just things that you don't think about. Um, and even just being part of this movement, where my prayer is that someday America will become a pro-life country again, where we will stop infanticide and protect the most innocent of lives, and be an example to the rest of the world of how valuable people are, and having family, like more families and there already are, who want to step up and step into the being a foster parent or being an adoptive parent. There are already so many families who want to do that and who are doing that and who are doing the hard work. And it's a horrible thing to say that there's not enough, especially if you're not doing anything to help or support those families, then you have no need to talk, because it's such a slap in the face to people who have given up their time and their hard-earned money and their lives and their family's life to adopt and foster. It is seriously, it's an evil and twisted thing to say. And if you want to have an opinion about it, then I hope that you're giving some money or some time or some donations to people who are already doing it, so that you can complain about it. And if you can't, if you're not doing that, you have no room to complain. And so that's hopefully something that we'll get to do in our 30s and our 40s, that we definitely feel like after having this baby that biologically speaking, we would like to not have any more kids. But, in the end of the day, God is in control. And that's kind of another topic. I guess it could be birth control, but we believe in natural family planning to the best of our abilities. We don't believe in birth control. We have our reasons for that, and I can go into depth on that. If you guys would like to hear another episode and talk about birth control in my 20s, I'd be happy to do that. I learned a lot about that I did not know growing up, that was not in the American Girl doll book, or the American Girl book, The Care and Keeping of You. Hello, who read that as a preteen? But I just feel very, very, very concrete in my stance now, where I can say, and it's not a slap in the face, it's not me judging, it's not me thinking I'm better than anybody else, but just being educated and informed. There's nothing to be angry at somebody about. Everybody should be educated and informed on this, because it impacts our country to the deepest level, and it impacts individuals to the deepest level. So that is my story about how I went from being a 20-something-year-old pro-choice Democrat to being now a 30-year-old incredibly pro-life mom of 4. When our 4th baby comes, our oldest will be 7, so we'll have 4, 7, and under, which is just crazy to me. And just something that I really wanted to honor the Lord with by sharing this story as the Sanctity of Life day approaches. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. Always be kind, be cordial. I'm not coming with my guns a-blazing and trying to wreak havoc on anybody's life, just simply to share and hopefully encourage somebody to make that a different decision. There are so many resources that I know of for women all across our nation, and I'd be happy to talk about those things in the comments. I'm pretty sure I have a blog post about different organizations that can help. On my Instagram, I have talked about a couple organizations. I'll just talk about some of them right now. Even the sweater is from the Goods and Better store, and with every purchase you make from the Goods and Better store, you get to choose a care item for foster children. And so I can link my website link to Goods and Better store in the show notes. Love the Goods and Better store. Love getting to be able to support foster children in that way, since we cannot tangibly take care of them in our home. I definitely have a blog about this now that I think about it, because I've written about this before. There's Let Them Live, and they are a pregnancy resource center, counselors, virtual, online, and in person, that feet on the ground, giving out ultrasounds, encouraging moms who are about to step into an abortion clinic, to encourage them to let their babies live and help them financially, mentally, educationally. We love supporting Let Them Live. We support Able Speaks, and so Able Speaks is an organization that comes alongside families who are choosing life for terminally ill babies instead of getting medical abortions for terminally ill babies. And so we've been supporting Able Speaks for about 5 years financially, and now we actually are receiving from Able Speaks as we walk through the season ourselves, which has been super surreal, and they are an amazing organization. It's been really impactful to have families have people who understand what we're going through walk with us, and perfect strangers who don't know us, who want it, who like love our baby, and just also having people going through it who know how it feels. And so they, in certain parts of the country, will help families find pro-life doctors who are not going to encourage abortion for terminally ill babies. It's a really beautiful organization. We love Able Speaks. We support Adoptable. Adoptable is an organization that, it's hard talking about this kind of stuff. We support another organization called Adoptable. We support another organization called America's Kids Belong. And so that's linking foster kids to their forever families. At the moment, I'm blanking specifically on what Adoptable does, but those are just a handful. We support Young Life and Young Lives for teen moms and dads. We love Young Lives, and I'm sure there's a couple that I'm missing. 7 Weeks Coffee. 7 Weeks Coffee supports pregnancy resource centers across the nation. I love coffee. Hello, my podcast is called Coffee with K. I love coffee. And so getting to love coffee and love babies and women who need help to keep their babies, all about it. I'm sure there's some more that I'm missing, so I'll put the blog post that I've written about these organizations in the comments, and also any referral links that I have to be able to support these organizations in the comments as well. There's so many ways that you can be a light in this dark space, and that's all I got. So thank you for listening to my story, and yeah, thanks for celebrating life with me, and I hope that this could encourage or impact somebody out there. Like I said, I'm always open to dialogue. I'm always open to talk about this and share other resources, other educational resources too, and even, if you're somebody out there who is wanting to pursue adoption, like my family, my husband and I are always open to it, even with our baby having these medical issues. Adoption is still something that's on the table that we plan to do in our future to complete our family. And whenever the Lord calls us to it, we will answer the call. And if it's not us or it can't be us, then we have other people in our circle who are also open to that. And we want to be able to minister to women in that way too, and men, because the dads matter. So anyway, that's our episode for today. I look forward to being back here more regularly and being able to record, hopefully with a little baby on my chest, and continue the season of An Ode to My 20s. Twenties has been rocking my world so far. Not in the best of ways, but I know it's gonna be good in the future to develop my character in these ways. So until next time.
By gray sky, hello blue. There's nothing can hold me. There's nothing can hold me. By gray sky, hello blue. There's nothing can hold me when I hold you. By gray sky, hello blue.